Welcome to Dividing Truth. I am your host, Lexi Johnson, and we're here with another amazing episode. Today, we are going to be talking about Black Women's Equal Pay Day. That's right, we're going to be talking about Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Listen, Dividing Truth is a weekly podcast sharing financial truths dedicated to helping women entrepreneurs and women professionals become financially free in uncertain times. And today, I want to start the show off before we get into our topic with I usually like to uh, share like a little, let's just call it money chats or something, if you will. I'll find a name for this segment of the show, but today we'll call it a money chat, right? And so today I wanted to share, I was reading an article and I wanted to share this because a lot of you may not be aware of this. If you filed your 2019 taxes, right, they had extended the deadline and the deadline was extended to July 15th. And so if you filed your taxes, you may begin to see a interest payment come to you from the government, right? And you may be asking, okay, what is this? Do I need to return it? What's going on? So let me share with you exactly what's going on, right? Some of you may have already begun to receive these. And so what has happened is because the filing date was pushed back to July 15th, right? That means the government had to hold on to your money for a longer period of time. Now, for those of you who don't know, your income tax, the refund that you get, basically all that is was you giving the government a loan, okay? So you allowed them to withhold that money. They use it for whatever they want to use it for, and then they issue it back to you, and which is why it's called a refund, right? That's why it's called a refund. So because they did not pay out, okay, again, your taxes are due April 15th normally, right? And so because they are holding on to the money for a little bit longer, the government has to pay you interest on that money, okay? So you will see that if you get an additional check, it's not a stimulus check, it's not anything like that. It's an interest payment check, and that money will that money is for you, okay? Now, that money is taxable. I want to share with you that that money is taxable, okay? So the next time you file taxes, okay, when you file your 2020 taxes, you're going to be issued one of the 1099s. Now, I'm not a tax person, so don't quote me. I can't remember what which exact form it is, but you're going to be issued that form so that you can and it's going to show that you received that interest payment, and it's going to be taxed. Okay, it's going to be taxed. So now let's move ahead. I want to share with you one more thing before we get into our topic. You are listening to Dividing Truth with Lexi, and it's presented by Radio Wave for Radio Wave. All right, I was about to say the website. So the website is actually radiowaveforyou.com, radiowaveforyou.com, and you can go to that website. You can see all of my shows. You can even watch my show live. It comes on every Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time. You can get all of the archived shows. But what we really want you to do is to download the Radio Wave app. Download the Radio Wave app. And we want you to listen through the app. Why is that? Because that's where the numbers count. That's where we want to grow our audience. So listen through the app. You can also listen to the podcast anywhere where podcasts are, right? Like Google Podcasts, all of that. But we want you to download the Radio Wave app from your Google store, your Android store, or your Play Store. Google Play Store, right? Your Apple Store, I meant to say. Right? Download the Radio Wave app and then, log in and listen to Dividing Truth. And not only my show, Radio Wave has so many podcasts and radio shows that are to your benefit, right? A little something for everybody. All right. So thank you once again for tuning in. And today, again, our topic is Black Women's Equal Pay Day, Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Now, at the time of this show, Black Women's Equal Pay Day has passed, right? It was on August 13th. So let's just talk about what that is, right? Because I still feel like there are a lot of people who, even Black people, who don't even know that this day exists, right? So what is Black Women's Equal Pay Day? Well, this year fell on August 13th. And why that date, right? Did they just pick it out of a hat? What's going on with that? Well, that date is the date that it would take Black women, okay? That is the date. That was the amount of time that it would take for Black women to make as much money as their white counterparts did in the year 2019, okay? So it took an extra 7.5 months, okay? It took an extra 7.5 months for the Black woman to make the same as her white male counterpart on her job. Okay, that's crazy. That is 7.5 months, right? Now, generally, equal pay for women is talked about and acknowledged, and all kind of awareness programs and things are going on generally in March, okay, and around March 21st. And that is really particularly for white women, okay? So that happens around March. Now, that's what, another 4.5 months, 5 months, okay? That still Black women have to catch up even to their white female counterparts, okay? So this is important. We have to talk about this today. So I want to share some statistics with you, share some things that some studies have found, but I also want to share with you, what can be done to close the gap, right? From a corporate perspective, right? What can be done on the job, within the job, right? And then from a outside of corporate, right? Because there's some opportunity outside of corporate to be able to do this, right? So I don't know what's going on. I'm going to have to pause a second. For those of you who are watching and listening, I apologize. But my lighting is doing something a little bit weird. And I think that is just kind of the way this is positioned. But I don't know. Let's see. Okay. All right. There. So let's talk about this, right? So you need to know that Black women make 62 cents on the dollar as compared to their male white counterparts, okay? Latina women is even more below that. It's 54 cents on the dollar, right? Over a 40-year career, Black women have made $1 million less than their white male counterparts. Okay. In fact, the exact number is $946,000, okay, over a 40-year career. And those numbers are according to the National Women's Law Center. Okay. So I want to, give kind of where some of these statistics are coming from in case you want to go and look up some of these things yourself, right? So that was according to the National Women's Law Center, right? So what we see here is there are huge disparities, but I want you to know that the disparities are not only in salary, right? There are also huge disparities in benefits. There's huge disparities in workloads. It's crazy because, in a lot of workplaces, you'll find that Black women or Hispanic women tend to have heavier workloads, right? And now I can speculate why that is, and I am speculating because this particular part of what I'm saying doesn't come from a particular study, but I can speculate that may be because people look at Black women, they look at Latina women, and will say that, these women are strong women, right? That strong Black women, strong Latina women, women of color are strong, they can handle it, they can take it, okay? That's my speculation, that attitude has brought that kind of treatment where the workloads are higher, the pay is less, right? So um, there's not only disparities in salary benefits, there's disparity in workloads, and there's disparity in growth opportunities, right? There's disparity in growth opportunities. And I wanted to share a personal story. I mean, a couple of personal stories here, if I could. I have experienced this on a couple of occasions when I was in the corporate world. The first time that I experienced this, being kind of kept out of a growth opportunity, um, a white woman who happened to be my superior at the time. Now, she was brought in, okay, because initially there was only one person above me that I reported to within that section of the company. There was one person that I reported to. They brought this woman in. She happened to be a white lady. And now she became my boss. And so now it's her and then the director. Even though I was an assistant director, okay, they brought her in, reported, and then we reported to her. So, well, let me make sure I get this right. I think she was actually over the person I reported to, and that put us a little bit lower in between the actual VP. That's how that worked. Okay. So originally it was me and then my because I was the assistant director, and then there was the director, and then there was the VP. Okay. When she came, it was me, the director, then her, then the VP. Okay. So when she came on board, um, she came in and she did her thing, right? Made some changes, did some things or whatever. Some of these changes were things that, I didn't agree with because I felt they got away from the mission and vision, the original mission and vision of the program. And I was never one really to bite my tongue. And I was not rude about it or anything like that. Just sharing my thoughts, my concerns. And I always did in a way like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. This is what I, think about this, or, maybe we want to consider this. But I always, because I was the assistant director, right? So I'm like, at the end of the day, it's their decision, right? That's the way I would present things. So I was never rude or disrespectful or forceful or anything like that, right? But I would speak my mind. And so as time went on, I believe that, and it's not anything that she said personally, but this is, based on some actions and, some things that I can't really get into too much today because we only have a certain amount of time. But I believe that she felt threatened by me, okay? Because here I am, very knowledgeable, great at what I do. People valued my opinion. Okay, so whether they were subordinate to me or whether they were superior to mine, they valued my opinion. I had many of my ideas would be implemented, right? And so she felt threatened by me, right? She felt maybe she was feeling like I was coming for her position, and I was not. I did not want to have to oversee 3 or more schools. I that wasn't my aim, right? I was already beginning to think about some other things in my life. And so she did what she could do to get me out of the way, right? Now, she moved me because she was over several different departments. She moved me from one department to another department. Now, if it could have been a demotion, but salary wise, that would have been the case. Okay. But she could not do that, right? Because there was nothing in my file that warranted a reduction in salary. Okay. But moving me from that department over to this department to manage it was really, if you looked at it, it was really a demotion. Okay. But I didn't say too much because, again, they weren't messing with my pay. When I say I didn't say too much, believe me, I said some stuff, but I wasn't really going to go at it, fight at it, because I again began to think about some other alternatives for myself, and we'll talk about that later, right? So um, that experience, I was hindered from a growth opportunity, whether I was looking for one or not. I was hindered from it, right? And these things are happening in the corporate world all the time, where people are insecure, people are afraid that someone is going to, take their position or whatever. And it's crazy to me that, in this day and age, that humans still think like that we're not comfortable in our own skin, we're not comfortable in our abilities, we're not comfortable in knowing and understand that what God has for us is for us, right? That we're not comfortable in that, and that we're so insecure that we will do someone else wrong, as a result. Now, you say that could have happened between a Black woman and Black woman. Yes, absolutely, that could have. But see, what else was going on was that there were other white women around me who were getting positions that they didn't even, you know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna say they didn't even qualify for, right? They came in after me and others, if you will, and then were given these, they had positions created for them, right? And so these things happen, and they have to be addressed, right? Now, the second time, and actually the way these happened, this was in reverse, right? So that was the latest one. The one prior to that was a different organization, and I put my name in a hat for a promotion, and I had the decision maker to tell me that they, while I qualified and was fully able to do the position, they had to give the position to a male counterpart, because that person had been there longer, and um, they were friends, and you might be like, what? Because this is what was said to me. Okay, so there wasn't any hiding in this one, right? Um, so again, growth opportunity hindered, um, and that particular one, and people aren't gonna like this, but that particular one, that instance, that was Black males. Okay. So there is, and I say that because that leads me to my next statistic, which says that Black women face more barriers than any other population. Okay. And that is from a study that was done by leanin.org. So you can go to their website, you can find the latest study that they've done. But they say that Black women face more barriers than any other population. Okay. So not only are we contending with our white male counterparts, but we are contending with Black males. We're contending with white females as it relates to being treated fairly and having equal pay in corporate, right? So I want to share with you some more statistics. Right? And so for every 100 men promoted to manager, only 58 Black women are promoted. Okay. So I just shared with you two personal stories where that was the case. Even in the first one, I talked about, how the white women were getting positions created for them. Like there was a Black man that got a directorship, was hired in after me. I trained him, right? And I'm not hating, because, I think it was great for him, right? I think he was very capable of doing it. So it wasn't like, someone that's not capable or anything like that. This person was very capable. Okay. Take nothing away from him. Um, but again, passed over, right? I trained this person, passed over for this black male. So for every 100 men promoted to manager, only 58 black women are promoted. All right. Um, less black women are supported less, okay, by their managers, and they have less access to senior leaders. They have less access to senior leaders. And that's crazy because how many of you know that in anything, but we're talking about work and corporate today, relationships are key, okay? And you want to have relationships with decision makers, okay? You want to have relationships with decision makers because that in those relationships, that's where you can find those opportunities to help you grow, those opportunities for promotion, all of that, right? And so if you don't have access to those types of difference makers, right? So that again, not that you can be handed anything, but again, so that you can be seen and see that you do have a lot to bring to the table, that you are capable of leading this organization just like everyone else, right? If you don't have that access, that hinders your ability to grow in a company, right? And this last statistic that I want to share with you, because I really want to get into talking about what can be done, right? This last statistic, Black women are 3 times more likely than white men and 2.5 times more likely than white women to hear a coworker express surprise about their language skills and about their and or about their abilities, right? So again, talk to many Black women. I'm sure that they will have a story to share with you where this, and we call them microaggressions, where this microaggression has taken place, right? So this is an example of a microaggression. When someone is looking at you like, I didn't expect because you speak, properly, you do your job extremely well. I didn't expect that from you. And they actually vocalize it, right? And oftentimes it's not because they intend bad, it's just their privilege, if you will. They just don't think twice about what it is that they're saying and how it comes off. Like just because I am Black, does that mean that I shouldn't know how to talk or I shouldn't know how to do my job well? It's crazy. So what do we do, right? And there are so many microaggressions. Let me tell you, you can do a whole podcast on microaggressions in and of themselves, right? So what can we do then to close the gap, if you will? How do we close this pay gap? And so I'm going to come from two perspectives. But before I do that, I want to share with you that you're listening to Radio Wave, uh, Dividing Truth with Lexi Johnson. And I want to share with you that you can subscribe to Dividing Truth by going to bit.ly/subscribe Dividing Truth, all lowercase, bit.ly/subscribe Dividing Truth. I want you to subscribe to the show. And here's why, because you can get these episodes right to your inbox. Two, we have a Fan of the Month program that is getting ready to get started in September. And so in order to qualify to be a Fan of the Month, you've got to be subscribed and on the mailing list, right? And of course, there's some, a few other things. You got to engage with the content, comment, all of that. Let us know you're listening, all of those things, right? But you can't even get that information, how to qualify for Fan of the Month, if you're not subscribed, right? And you can also get other, tips, financial tips and things like that directly to your inbox. So go ahead and subscribe, bit.ly/subscribe Dividing Truth. All right, so now let's talk about what are some things that we can do, right? What are some things that we can do? Well, within the corporate setting, first of all, for peers, okay, coworkers of Black women, when you hear something that's not right, say something. Okay. When you see something that is not right, say something. When you feel that someone, a black woman, has been treated unfairly, or she has not been given, the same opportunity, say something, right? Don't be afraid to say something. Okay. In places where black women are looked over, your voice matters, right? Your voice matters, right? Her voice matters too. She's going to have to say something and, speak up for herself as well. But your voice matters as well. She should not be alone out there on an island fighting this, right? I want to also talk to leaders. And I really want to talk more so to leaders too, because as employers and as decision makers, you can affect the culture. Okay. So make it a safe place where women of color can talk about, if they are feeling like they're not being treated fairly or equally, right? Also make sure as leaders that you're paying your people equally for their work. Okay. So again, no one's asking for handouts, but if you have a black woman here who's doing the same job as a white male counterpart, and she's performing at his level, okay, or better even, but she's making less money, that's an issue. And as a leader, as a decision maker, it's on you to make sure that that's not happening, right? Create a safe space for everyone to be able to, share and give feedback on how people are treated, and many other uh, uh, things that are going on in the business. Yes, we don't want people just, complaining and whining. So that's not what I am promoting. Okay. But you want to have a supportive environment. Provide access when you can for women of color, Black women in particular, to have opportunities to sit down with decision makers, lunch with decision makers, have a relationship with decision makers. Don't stand in the way, right? Or don't allow any other employees to stand in the way of that, right? So there's a lot that you can do as an employer, as a leader on the job, to help to close the gap, right, where equal pay is concerned. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about really is the action that I took. And we need people that are in corporate and fighting within corporate, okay, to change the culture within corporate, so that, Black women in corporate can be treated fairly and paid fairly, right? But also, Black women, I'm talking to you. We don't have to wait for someone to tell us what we're worth. We don't have to wait for someone to decide that we are now worthy, that we are now deserving of equal pay, right? You don't have to wait. You can start your own business. In fact, the fastest growing startups right now, or new business, new entrepreneurs, the fastest growing population that you see right now is Black women. Okay. So there's always the option of starting a business, which I know can be, kind of scary because it's not that bi-weekly or however you get paid, check. But honestly, you have more control over your pay than you do working in corporate, right? So you can start your own business, or you can do independent contracting, right? Because I do both. I have my own business that I've started from scratch, and then I also contract with a company, right? But I can dictate when I work, how I work, who I work with, and more importantly, I can dictate the pay, right? If I am not out here making money, right, and making as much money as my white male counterparts, then that's on me. I have that control. I don't have to wait on anyone to to wave a wand, and grant me permission, if you will, that it's now okay for me to make whatever kind of money that I want to make, right? And so independent contracting, if you're not necessarily wanting to start a business from scratch, that can be the way for you to close the gap, take action and close the gap, right? And then you want to look for industries that will allow you to do that. So, of course, if you all have been following me for any time, listening to me for any time, you know that I am in the financial services industry. It is one of the highest paid industries, but also if you get into it as an independent contractor, you control your pay, right? You control your pay. And so I am so glad that I am able to offer opportunities to women, and particularly Black women, independent contracting opportunities that will help you to close the gap, right? So if you're interested in that, you can make sure to get in touch with me anywhere on social media at Purposeful Lexi, right? Get in touch with me and let's talk about that, right? Because again, we don't have to wait until people in corporate deem it appropriate for women to make equal pay, or for Black women to make equal pay as their white female counterparts or their white male counterparts, or sometimes even their Black male counterparts, right? We don't have to wait on that. And with independent contracting or your own business, you can, again, control your own schedule. You can control who you work with. You can control, I mean, it's just a lot less stressful, right? And again, like I said, we need the people within the corporate environment fighting, and I support that wholeheartedly. I just, I'm like, listen, I need to close that gap rather quickly, right? I need to close that gap rather quickly. There's some things that I want to accomplish in my working years, right? And I don't want to be, when retirement comes, still talking about equal pay for Black women, right? Um, Years and years and years later, right? So that's the step that I took. That may not be for everybody, but if it's for you, reach out to me. Let's talk about that. Let's see if the independent contracting positions that I have available would be mutually beneficial, right? And it will allow you to help you reach your goals as far as pay is concerned. So this is something that we'll have to continue to talk about, right? And we want to watch this because I hope that next year when we celebrate Black women's, well, not celebrate, but it's an awareness, right? We'll bring awareness to it, Black Women's Equal Pay Day. My prayer is that that date is not in August, that date will have moved up, okay? That it is in July, that it is in June, that it is in May, that it is in March, that that it moves up. That's my prayer, right? And again, for others out there, there is much that you can do too to help to close the pay gap. It's time is out, right, for just standing by and watching things happen to one another, right? Like I'm looking at Latinas, and I happen to be a Black Latina, right? So what does that mean for me? Do I make the average of the 54 to 62% if I'm in corporate or what, right? But it is time that we stop just, looking at things happening to, our Black female counterparts and our Latina female counterparts, and that we are actually engaging in work, in dialogue, and again, I don't want to focus on dialogue. We talk about that all the time, but we can dialogue until the end of times, right? There has to be work done. And so what can we each do, right? What can we each do? I am providing independent contractor opportunities for those women who want to take advantage of it. What can you do? What can you do? You don't have to do what I'm doing. Maybe you're in the corporate world, but what can you do? Can you speak up a little bit more? Do Do you know, maybe are you know for sure your voice is heard more than a Black woman's voice? Can you use your voice to speak on a Black woman's behalf? What can you do, right? What can you do? Are you an employer, a leader who can provide access for women of color, right? What can you do in your own space so that next year this date is moved up, right? So that's all that I want to share with you. You've been listening to Dividing Truth with Lexi. Follow me on all social media at Purposeful Lexi. Subscribe to Dividing Truth, bit.ly/subscribe Dividing Truth. And don't forget to download Radio Wave app. Okay, go to your Google store, your Android store, your Apple store, and download the Radio Wave app and listen to Dividing Truth through the app, because that's where our numbers are counting the most right now. And I'm counting on you to help me so that this show can be broadcast, all over the place, right? All over the place. Share this with your friends. We'll see you next Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time with our next amazing episode. Have an amazing week.
Audio Jungle.